courtroom was silent except for the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. I stood there in a navy blue suit that suddenly felt too heavy to wear. My hands were cuffed, my future hanging by a thread. Across the room sat the people I trusted. Most my wife Emily and my business partner Victor Hayes. Neither of them looked at me. 9 years of building an empire together. 9 years of sleepless nights. 9 years of believing that loyalty was stronger than money. And in less than 15 minutes, everything was gone. The judge adjusted his glasses and spoke words that echoed through my soul. Daniel Carter, this court finds you guilty of financial fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering involving Carter Technologies. You are sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. The gavel slammed. My knees almost gave way. No, I shouted. I didn't steal anything. I've been framed. The courtroom ignored me. 2 federal marshals grabbed my arms as they led me away. I looked toward Emily. She didn't cry. She didn't even seem shocked. Instead, she quietly held Victor's hand beneath the table. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then Victor smiled. It wasn't a comforting smile. It was the smile of a man who had just won everything. 9 months earlier, life couldn't have been better. At 48, I had everything a man could dream of. A beautiful home overlooking Lake Washington. A wife everyone admired. Company worth $42 million. Hundreds of employees who believed in my vision. Carter Technologies wasn't just another software company. We designed cybersecurity systems for banks, hospitals, and government agencies. Every contract was worth millions. Every month we kept growing and standing beside me. Since the beginning was my closest friend, Victor Hayes. We met in college. He was brilliant with numbers. I was obsessed with innovation. Together we were unstoppable. People called us the perfect partnership. If I signed a contract, Victor handled the finances. If I invented something, Victor sold it. For nearly 15 years, I trusted him more than my own brother. That would become the biggest mistake of my life. One Friday evening, after celebrating another record-breaking quarter, Victor suggested we grab drinks. Daniel, he laughed, raising his glass. To 42 million, I smiled. No, to the next 100 million, he laughed louder. Emily joined us later that evening. She kissed me on the cheek. You deserve this, she whispered. I've never been more proud of you. Looking back, those words haunt me, because while she was saying them, she was already planning my downfall. Over the next few weeks, strange things began happening. Small accounting discrepancies appeared. Nothing major. A few $1,000s missing here, a payment delayed there. Victor always had an explanation. Bank error, accounting mistake, wire transfer delay. I believed him every single time. After all, he was my best friend. Then one Monday morning, our CFO, Sarah Mitchell, knocked on my office door. She looked terrified. Hey, Daniel, we need to talk. She closed the door behind her. I found transactions I can't explain. She placed several folders on my desk. Millions of dollars had been transferred into offshore accounts. Accounts I'd never seen before. My signature was on every authorization. I stared at the papers. These are fake. Sarah nodded. I know your signature. This isn't yours. My stomach tightened. Who approved these? Sarah hesitated. I don't know. But someone inside the company is setting you up. Before I could ask another question, Victor walked into the office. He glanced at the documents for only a second before acting surprised. Oh my God. What is all this? Sarah looked at him carefully. I was just showing Daniel. Victor sighed dramatically. We need to call the auditors immediately. He sounded like the concerned friend, the loyal partner, the man trying to save the company. I had no idea. He was the one who had orchestrated every single transaction. 3 weeks later, federal agents stormed Carter Technologies. Employees screamed, computers were seized, boxes of documents disappeared. Agents walked directly into my office. One of them held out a warrant. Daniel Carter, you're under arrest. I couldn't understand what was happening. This has to be a mistake. The lead investigator looked me straight in the eyes. "We have overwhelming evidence. Bank records, digital signatures, email authorizations, witness statements. Everything pointed to me. Everything, as they escorted me through my own company." I looked toward Victor. He lowered his head, pretending to be heartbroken. Emily ran toward him instead of me. She wrapped her arms around him, and together, they watched me disappear into the elevator. That was the moment. I realized something was terribly wrong, but I still wasn't ready to believe the truth. Not yet, because the worst betrayal hadn't even begun. Asterisk. The steel prison gate slammed shut behind me with a deafening clang. That sound echoed through my chest like a death sentence. Everything I'd ever worked for, my company, my home, my reputation, my freedom, it was all gone. The prison guard shoved a box into my hands. "Your new life starts here." Inside were faded prison clothes, a toothbrush, cheap soap, and a small identification card. No suit, no watch, no wedding ring, no name, only an inmate number. For the first time in my life, I felt completely powerless. The first few months were unbearable. Prison wasn't just about locked doors. It was about surviving every single day. Every morning started at 5 o'clock a.m. Every meal tasted the same. Every hallway carried the smell of bleach, sweat, and despair. Fights broke out almost daily. The strongest ruled, the weak disappeared. I quickly learned one rule: never tell anyone you were once rich. That information could get you killed. So whenever someone asked what I did before prison, I simply answered, I worked in an office, nothing more. The only thing keeping me alive was Emily. Every week I waited for her visit. Every week she canceled. First she was busy, then she was traveling. Then nothing. Not a single letter. Not a single phone call. Not even a birthday card. After 6 months, I finally asked my lawyer, Michael Reynolds, "Have you heard from my wife?" He looked away before answering. "I think you deserve to know the truth." My heart sank. What truth? Michael slowly opened his briefcase. Inside was a magazine. The cover froze my blood. Victor stood in front of Carter. Technology's headquarters beside him was Emily. She wasn't standing beside him. She was kissing him. The headline read, "Tech CEO Victor Hayes and wife Emily Carter celebrate company's record year." Wife. Not girlfriend, not partner. Wife. I stared at the page, unable to breathe. It's impossible. Michael remained silent. "They got married 4 months ago." My hands began shaking. "What? You and Emily divorced while you were in prison?" "I never signed divorce papers." Michael sighed. "She had power of attorney, and according to the documents." "You agreed?" I slammed my fist against the prison table. "I never signed anything, I know, but the court accepted it. For the second time in my life, everything had been stolen." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every memory, every smile, every anniversary, every promise Emily had ever made. Had any of it been real? Or had she always loved Victor? Months turned into years. My parents passed away while I was incarcerated. I wasn't allowed to attend either funeral. That pain never left me. One afternoon, an elderly inmate named Samuel sat beside me in the library. He had spent 30 years behind bars for a crime he admitted committing. "You look angry," he said. "I've lost everything," I replied. Samuel shook his head. "You've only lost what can be taken. They can't steal who you are." I laughed bitterly. "They already did." Samuel smiled. "Only if you let them." Ow. Those words stayed with me. From that day forward, I made a decision. If I couldn't clear my name today, I'd prepare for the day I finally could. I spent every free hour in the prison library. I studied law, corporate, fraud, financial investigations, digital forensics. The prison librarian joked that I was earning another college degree, maybe. I was, because one day I would need every bit of that knowledge. Nearly 7 years into my sentence, something unexpected happened. Michael Reynolds arrived for his monthly visit. This time, he wasn't carrying legal files. He was carrying a small cardboard box. "I've kept these safe all these years," he said. "What is it?" They were delivered anonymously to my office. Inside the box were old company documents, USB drives, backup hard disks, accounting records, and one handwritten note. It contained only 6 words. Victor missed one hidden account. My heart began racing. Michael leaned closer. I had an independent forensic accountant examine these, and he smiled for the first time in years. Daniel, I think we've just found the beginning of the truth. I gripped the edge of the table. What did you find? Michael lowered his voice. The money wasn't stolen by you. It was moved by someone using a hidden administrator account. An account that only one executive had access to. I already knew the answer, even before he said the name. Michael looked directly into my eyes. Victor Hayes. For the first time in nearly 9 years, hope returned. But exposing. Victor would require something far more dangerous than evidence. We would have to prove that the entire case against me had been carefully planned from the very beginning. And someone on the outside was finally ready to help. 9 years. That was how long Victor Hayes believed he had won. He had my company. He had my wife. He had my fortune. And according to the world, he had buried me forever. But he had made one mistake. He underestimated the truth. Michael Reynolds returned the following week with exciting news. I found the person who sent the box. I leaned forward. Who is it? He won't meet in person. He insists on complete secrecy. Why? Michael looked around the prison visiting room before answering. 'Cause he believes Victor has people watching him. A chill ran down my spine. Victor hadn't just framed me. He had spent years protecting his secret. A week later, Michael returned, carrying another envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten letter. The letter read, "My name is Ethan Brooks. I worked as Senior Systems Administrator at Carter Technologies. 9 years ago, I discovered unauthorized access to the company's financial servers. Before I could report it, I was offered a promotion and a large bonus to stay quiet. When I refused, I was fired for poor performance. I was too scared to fight back. I'm sorry. I should have spoken years ago." I read the letter twice. Then a third time. Finally, I looked at Michael. "Can we trust him?" Michael nodded. I already verified his identity, and the files are real. The flash drive contained server logs that had never been presented during my trial. Every login, every transaction, every deleted file. One username appeared again and again. VH-admin, Victor Hayes. The administrator account had created fake financial records using my credentials. Then, the logs suddenly stopped. Someone had erased them, but not completely, because Ethan had secretly made a backup before he was fired, for the first time in nearly a decade. We had evidence, real evidence, but there was a problem. It wasn't enough. The courts would ask one question. Why had Ethan waited 9 years? Victor's lawyers would destroy his credibility. We needed something undeniable. Months passed as Michael continued investigating. Then one afternoon he walked into the prison with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "I found Sarah Mitchell, the CFO." He nodded. "What happened after your conviction?" "What happened?" "Victor paid her nearly $2 million. I stared at him for silence. Michael slowly opened another folder. "No." "For testimony?" But Sarah had told investigators she personally watched me approve the fraudulent transfers. Her testimony had become one of the biggest reasons the jury convicted me. But after receiving the money, she resigned, changed her name, moved across the country. She had vanished. Until now, Michael arranged a private meeting. Sarah agreed to speak only if prosecutors guaranteed immunity. She was terrified. During the recorded interview, she couldn't stop crying. "I've lived with this guilt every day." Investigator asked quietly, "Did Daniel Carter steal company money?" Sarah burst into tears. "No," I lied. The room fell silent. "Who told you to lie?" She whispered 2 words. "Victor Hayes." According to Sarah, Victor had approached her 6 months before my arrest. He showed her forged documents proving I was supposedly stealing from the company. He convinced her that exposing me would save hundreds of employees. Then he offered her money, $2 million. She believed she was helping protect the company. Only later did she realize she had destroyed an innocent man's life. When Michael played the recording for me, I couldn't speak. For years, I had hated Sarah. Now I saw another victim. Victor hadn't just manipulated me, he had manipulated everyone around him. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Emily contacted Michael. She wanted to meet. I laughed bitterly. 9 years. Disappears for 9 years. And now she wants to talk? Michael looked serious. Daniel, she says she's afraid. Afraid of what? He didn't tell me. But she said one sentence that caught my attention. What? Michael looked directly into my eyes. She said, Victor isn't the man you think he is. A week later, Emily walked into Michael's office wearing sunglasses and a scarf. She looked nothing like the confident woman from the magazine covers. She looked exhausted, broken. She sat down and immediately started crying. Oh, I know you hate me. Michael remained silent. I deserve it, but Victor. She stopped, struggling to breathe. Victor has been recording everyone for years. What do you mean? He keeps hidden recordings, business meetings, phone calls, private conversations. He says they're his insurance policy. Michael's heart began racing. Where are they? Emily hesitated. I know where he hides them. If those recordings still exist, they'll prove Daniel never committed the crime. At that exact moment, across town, Victor Hayes sat alone in his luxurious office overlooking the city. His assistant entered nervously. Sir, we have a problem. Victor didn't even look up. What is it? Someone broke into your lake house? Victor froze. The basement? Yes, the hidden safe. It's empty. For the first time in 9 years, the smile disappeared from Victor Hayes' face, because the evidence he thought was buried forever had just vanished, and he knew exactly what that meant. His time was running out. Asterisk 9 years for 9 years. Victor Hayes had lived like a king. He sat in my office, signed contracts with my name erased from history, spent the fortune we had built together, and every night. He believed one thing. Daniel Carter would never come back. He was wrong. 3 weeks after the break-in at Victor's Lake house, my lawyer, Michael Reynolds, returned to the prison. This time, he wasn't smiling. He was grinning. He placed a thick folder on the table. We got it. I looked at him in disbelief. The recordings, Michael nodded, every single one. Could barely breathe. Inside the safe had been dozens of encrypted hard drives. Victor had secretly recorded almost everyone he worked with. He believed the recordings would protect him if anyone ever betrayed him. Instead, they became the evidence that would destroy him. The FBI's digital forensic team spent days recovering deleted files. Among thousands of recordings, one file stood out. It was dated 8 days before my arrest. Michael pressed the play button. Victor's voice filled the room. Everything is ready, another man asked. What about Daniel? Victor laughed. By the time he realizes what's happening, he'll already be in prison. The second man hesitated. What if the investigators ask questions? Victor answered calmly. They won't. Sarah is already paid. Emily has signed everything. The fake transfers all point to Daniel. No one will ever suspect me. My heart stopped. For 9 years, I had dreamed of hearing those words. Now, they were real, but there was even more. Another recording began. This one featured Emily. Her voice trembled. Victor, this has gone too far. Victor replied coldly. You wanted the money? You wanted Daniel out of your life? So don't pretend you're innocent. Emily started crying. I never wanted him sent to prison. Victor laughed. You signed every document. You're just as guilty as I am. Silence. Then Victor whispered something that chilled everyone listening. If Daniel ever gets out, he won't live long. The room fell silent. Even the FBI agents exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was a conspiracy. Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering. Perjury attempted. Murder. The entire case had exploded. Within 48 hours, federal prosecutors filed an emergency motion. The The same judge who had sentenced me 9 years earlier reviewed the new evidence. Special hearing was scheduled. For the first time in nearly a decade, I was taken back to the courthouse. Walking through those doors again felt surreal. Everything looked the same. The marble floors, the wooden benches, the courtroom. Only one thing had changed. This time, I wasn't sitting alone. The FBI sat beside me. Victor entered wearing an expensive tailored suit. He looked confident. He smiled at reporters. He even waved. Then he saw me. The smile disappeared. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, "Impossible." I simply looked back at him. No. The impossible was believing you'd get away with it forever. The prosecutor stood before the judge. "Your Honor, we request that Mr. Daniel Carter's conviction be immediately vacated." The courtroom gasped. The prosecutor continued. "The government has obtained overwhelming evidence proving that Mr. Carter was deliberately framed by Victor Hayes and several accomplices." Michael handed the judge the recovered recordings, bank records, server logs, Sarah, Mitchell's sworn confession, Ethan Brooks' testimony. Every piece fit perfectly. Victor's attorney stood. This evidence could have been fabricated. The prosecutor smiled. "Then perhaps Mr. Hayes can explain this." The courtroom speakers came alive. Victor's own voice echoed through the room. "Daniel will take the fall. By the time anyone knows the truth, I'll own everything." Victor turned pale. His lawyer slowly lowered his head. He knew the case was over. The judge removed his glasses. He looked directly at me. Double quotes, "Mr. Carter. It is the opinion of this court that a terrible miscarriage of justice has occurred." He paused, then said the words I had waited 9 long years to hear. "Your conviction is vacated. You are a free man." Tears filled my eyes. I wasn't crying because I was free. I was crying because someone finally believed me as I walked out of the courtroom. Hundreds of reporters surrounded me. Cameras flashed. Microphones reached toward my face. Everyone wanted a statement. Instead, I stepped away from the crowd. I borrowed Michael's phone. There was only one call I wanted to make. He handed me the phone without asking why. I dialed a number from memory. Victor answered on the second ring. "Hello?" Spoke calmly, without anger, without shouting. Just 6 words. "Victor, your time is up." I ended the call. For the first time in 9 years, I smiled asterisk. But getting my freedom back was only the beginning. Now it was time to reclaim my company, uncover the full extent of Victor's crimes, and decide whether the people who betrayed me deserved justice or forgiveness. Asterisk, the morning after I walked out of the courthouse. I stood outside the federal prison with nothing but a small cardboard box. Inside were the same belongings I had. Surrendered 9 years earlier, an old wristwatch that no longer worked, my wedding ring, a faded family photographed, and the keys to a house that no longer belonged to me. Freedom felt strange. The world had moved on without me. Technology had changed. Cities looked different. Even I barely recognized the gray-haired man staring back from the reflection of a car window. But one thing hadn't changed. I still wanted justice. Within days, Victor Hayes was arrested on multiple federal charges: conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, perjury, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, attempted murder, conspiracy. His assets were immediately frozen. News channels across the country covered the story. The headlines were everywhere. Tech CEO framed. Business partner for 9 years. $1 million. Fraud finally exposed. Wrongfully convicted entrepreneur declared innocent. The same media that once called me a criminal now called me a survivor. A week later, federal agents asked me to attend Victor's arraignment. This time he walked into the courtroom wearing prison handcuffs. No expensive suit, no confident smile, no bodyguards, just fear. As he passed me, he stopped. "I never thought you'd make it this far." I looked him in the eyes. I always intended to. Victor lowered his voice. "You could still make this easier. Tell the prosecutors To accept a deal? I smiled for the first time in years. I spent 9 years paying for your crimes. You can spend the rest of your life paying for yours. Marshals pulled him away. That was the last conversation we ever had. Emily requested to meet me one final time. Michael asked if I was sure. After thinking for a long time, I agreed. She walked into the meeting room looking exhausted. The confident woman I had once loved was gone. Her eyes were filled with regret. She sat across from me in silence. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. She continued, "I loved you once, but I became greedy. Victor promised me everything. Thought I could live with what we did." She broke down, crying. "But every single day after you went to prison, I hated myself." Slid a folder across the table. Signed over every dollar I received, the houses, investments, the company shares. All yours. I slowly pushed the folder back toward her. "I don't want revenge." She looked up. "Just want my life back." She cried harder than before. That was our final goodbye. I never saw Emily again. Months later, the civil court officially returned ownership of Carter Technologies to me. Walking back into the company headquarters felt surreal. Employees lined both sides of the lobby. Many had tears in their eyes. Some had worked there since the beginning. Others had joined after I disappeared. The receptionist looked at me and smiled. "Welcome home, Mr. Carter." The entire building erupted in applause for nearly a minute. No one spoke. They simply clapped. I had imagined this moment thousands of times inside my prison cell. Reality was even more emotional. The first thing I did as CEO surprised everyone. I didn't renovate my office. I didn't buy a luxury car. I didn't celebrate. Instead, establish the Daniel Carter Justice Foundation, dedicating millions of dollars to helping people who had been wrongfully convicted. "It happened to me," I said during the foundation's opening ceremony. "It can happen to anyone." The foundation paid for legal investigations, DNA testing, and defense lawyers for innocent prisoners who had no one left to fight for them. Helping them gave meaning to the years that had been stolen from me. 1 year later, Victor Hayes stood before the same judge who had once sentenced me. This time, the evidence was overwhelming. The judge looked at Victor and said, "Your greed destroyed innocent lives. You betrayed your partner, manipulated witnesses, corrupted the justice system, and showed no remorse." He paused before announcing the sentence. 40 years in federal prison. The courtroom fell. Silent Victor looked toward me one last time. He expected anger, hatred, maybe even satisfaction. Instead, I simply nodded, because revenge had never been my goal. The truth was, several months later, I stood at the edge of a quiet lake as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. 9 years had been stolen from me. I could never recover them. I had missed birthdays, funerals, anniversaries, simple moments that can never be replaced, but I had gained something equally valuable: perspective. I finally understood that wealth isn't measured by money. It's measured by the people who stand beside you when you have nothing. As I turned to leave, my phone rang. It was Michael. "You ready for tomorrow?" I smiled. "What's tomorrow?" "The groundbreaking ceremony for the new Justice Foundation headquarters." I looked up at the evening sky. Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm finally ready." Epilogue. People often ask me if I hate Victor Hayes. The answer surprises them. No. Hatred would mean he still controls part of my life. He already stole 9 years. I refused to give him another day. Because in the end, the company came back. My name was cleared. Justice prevailed. And I discovered that the greatest victory isn't destroying the people who betray you, it's rebuilding a life they thought they had destroyed forever.